Well, the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid, and it is the main form that students and their families would use to apply for financial aid. It is the form that applies for the federal portion of a student's financial aid award. At Providence, we use also another form called the College Scholarship Service Profile, and that is the form students use to complete for institutional determination of eligibility. But the FAFSA is really the vehicle that students would use to apply for such things as a Pell Grant or a federal student loan, campus work study, and if parents are looking to finance through a Federal Plus loan program, that is also the form that they use to complete for any kind of consideration of that loan product. There's a lot, and I'd have to say I've been in financial aid for a really long time, and this is probably the most sweeping changes in my entire career. Not only is the timing of the form different for this year, and that's a kind of a one-time change, but the form has been shortened and simplified, primarily I think to help families identify more Pell Grant resources for them, and so they're hoping that more students through a simplified version will be able to apply, complete, and receive eligibility for Pell Grants. The form has been completely redesigned. There are a number of questions that have been shortened, so it's supposed to be simpler for the student to be able to complete and fill out. However, beyond that, there's been a lot of changes to the formula itself. And I think the terminology that families and aid offices have been used to using for years is also very different. A few of those big changes, I would think, is that the word is estimated family contribution or expected family contribution now is a student aid index. And it is called an index because it's no longer an assessment of a family's ability to contribute to educational expenses, but more an index that is going to be used to determine how much they can get primarily from Pell. So it's a very different kind of thought process. There is also changing the word where it used to be a family or a parent that would complete or a student, and they're now changing the terminology to a contributor. So a student or a parent is now a contributor toward educational expenses. Not great. I don't want to say it's terrible. I think that it's definitely slow. And to give some perspective, we've been I think spoiled a bit by thinking or getting the information in where families can start completing as early as October. And there was a delay in the timing of when that form, because it's completely been revamped, was available. And it wasn't available until December 31st. Again, those in the aid community often thought that it was, midnight on that date. And since then, the availability has been it's not frequent. They have rollouts where they're calling it a soft rollout, and they only have the form open for periods of time, and then they'll close it down. So what will happen is that it gives the Department of Education time to work out some of those kinks or work on things that aren't quite working. But there's causing some frustration, again, from families that may feel they're in the middle of it, or that they can't gain access to something when they're reading that they need to get this material or this form done for colleges and universities to be able to provide financial aid to students. The other part of it is that as an aid office, and it's not just Providence, but any aid office, we're not going to see that data from families until mid-February at the earliest. We normally would have had that starting back in October. And so the impact has been very different for us, meaning that, all of our early decision students that have just been admitted to the class of 28, we have not had that financial aid form or the FAFSA from them to be able to determine federal eligibility. Instead, we've used our College Scholarship Service Profile, and we understand what the calculation will do, but we've based our information on that in a way to get out information to our early decision candidates where that information or that aid or that offer of admission is binding unless they can't make that work financially. So we're going to have to relook at all of those files again, relook at all of those students when the free application comes in. And it is not uncommon that, again, that we'll get different information on the FAFSA than we may have in the profile, primarily in the form of assets, because FAFSA will ask for information as of the day they file the form, and profile might have already been filed months back. So we'll have some differences there that we'll have to work with families through. We've changed some of our required deadline dates. We had a February date. We know that's not realistic for our families, so we've moved that back because we want to give our families enough time to get it done. We know it's coming, and I think not only Providence College, but it's a national rollout. So every college in the country is really trying to figure out how do we best work with our families to make sure that they have the information they need to make those important decisions about financing. When I think about the messaging about that first time that somebody is applying for financial aid, I always tell somebody you should do it at least your first year to see what your benchmark is and where you fall. It is again, if you have any interest in any student loan or financing, or you have any interest in a parent loan, then yes, fill it out. That is important for you to do so. But if you are a family that already know that you don't really want to finance or that you don't want to take debt, and you do not expect that you're going to have any eligibility for any of the institutional grant funds, then you could decide not to do it. I do want to caution our Providence families that if they do not do FAFSA, that we also won't deter, even if they use profile, we need both forms to be able to put together a need-based financial aid award. So any student who wants to be considered for any of the institutional grant funds, they have to do both forms. It is all over. We have a fair amount of information on our website. We have somebody in our office that is also putting updates on social media. They're placing them on Instagram. We've got a Facebook page, and we're trying to add information there. We send communication out to our parents and send it periodically. We also share information with our students about our filing dates. I think that going to the Department of Ed website, they have a very kind of up-to-date and active site that allows students to be able to see what's going on at the time. This is a time for everyone to be patient. I think, we know that it's delayed, so we don't want families to really get anxious about the timing of it. And if we've got published deadlines and a student is not near them and they're having trouble and difficulty navigating through the information, we just ask that let us know. We also are moving deadlines as we hear kind of new updated stuff. So I think being patient, reading, understanding kind of where the changes or where the process is at the moment.